Hi friends and fellow woodturners, Richard Ford here, coming to you from Nova Scotia, Canada. Well, it's fall, October, and we had a very hot summer. Kept me out of my workshop for a few weeks. During the summer I was visiting with a friend, and I'd taken down my little buffing table here, and we were using it on his machine. I was showing him how it makes buffing safer, and I feel safer using it, and how it supports the part while you're buffing. And while we were doing this, we were, as most wood turners, talking about some of the problems we had wood turning. And at the time he was making some little stands, and the stands had two columns, and he wanted the columns to be exactly the same. Now, that's not always easy, especially if you're being a little bit fussy and you really want them exactly the same. So he had been looking at some copying machines, and I remembered I had thought about making a copying machine some years ago, and I suddenly realized the table on the buffing table was completely adjustable. Anywhere the banjo would go, would let it be put, and you could move it up and down and just lock it wherever you wanted it. And that was one of the things that had kind of stopped me when I've been thinking about copying before, was to have to make a table, and I could visualize making several tables, because it would never be just right. So this gave me an idea of how I could do it. And that's what I've been doing the last few months, is experimenting and producing a duplicator. I call it the FAD, Ford's Awesome Duplicator. And the table that I've come up with is this one. This table here. And you can see how it fits on the bed on the ways of the lathe here, and there's a key in the middle that fits on the lathe. So when you put it down, oops, I got it backwards. When you put it down, I'll turn the camera around so you can see that a little better. When you put it on the lathe, on the bed, it rests on the bed, and the keys fit right in the way here, so it's positioned. Chips under it, of course. There. Now, to lock it down, there's a threaded rod, goes up through the center of the ways, and then you just lock it up with this little threaded, it's a nut really. You can lock it into place like that. Now, this has a key running along the back, and what this does is give you a very solid table that is a definite distance from the center of your lathe to the table. So you have a known dimension. And the key is for these units, which give you another set of centers. There's two of them. Another set of centers above the table, and these centers are completely in line with the centers of your lathe. So my idea here was I wanted to be able to turn a master similar to this. So I turned this in the regular way between centers, using the normal practices of, usually I draw it first and then I make a little template and I use my calipers and I turn it between centers. So I've produced a master here, and this is in the case where you're going to want to make more of them. You're going to want to make many of these perhaps. So you can take the master and mount it between these upper centers here. Like this. So this now is directly above the center line of the lathe. And the table will slide along, and you can position it. This will also slide along on the key, and there are a couple of places where you can use the bolt in the middle to lock it down. And you can mount now, whoops, a block of wood, say, between centers, between your regular lathe centers, like that. Now, this block now is the block you're going to turn. Maybe I should bring you in just a smidgen here so you can see that a little better. Yeah. This is turning. Don't need this anymore. And this would be locked down, of course, underneath. Now we have the master directly above it. We can take the turning tool. Here it is. It has a cutter in it here. This is the cutting end that will cut that. We'll just show. Cut the wood. And it has a stylus mounted directly in line with it, so that when it gets in and this stylus comes in contact with the master, it stops it going in any further. And so by following that profile along, I'm able to reproduce the profile of the piece up the top, make a duplicate of it. And there you have the basics of the table. There is another cutter that I use when I'm doing acrylics, but this is the one I use for wood. And I've made a couple of little videos showing it in use, and they'll follow this if you want to watch them. So there it is. That's been my project for the summer, and I've experimented a little bit with different surfaces. I think melamine is as good as anything, really. This is a little bit over the top maybe. This is a Teflon coated steel cut out of a baking pan. Yes, I got permission to use it. And this is high density polyethylene on the bottom here. I probably haven't finished experimenting with materials. For what you need is something very stable, very easy to move, that will slide, and I find having a handle on the back, suggestion of another turner who visited me, is a big advantage. It works really well, and so far it's been working very well. Now this is something you would be probably interested in if you were going to do multiple parts. It's not really what you want for just doing one off, although I say that, but if you don't have a master in there, it is completely then free form. And you could use it as a turner, way to turn. It's very simple, and I have a couple of young grandchildren who perhaps could use this to turn something easier like this than they could using a conventional tool rest. So perhaps it has a secondary use. I haven't really followed through on that yet, but it'll be interesting. I could produce the master like this that I'm want to copy. It will cut quite nicely. So it's not regular turning, but it's interesting. Oh, it's pretty rough here, doing it this way. Usually I finish up going this way because the stylus is coming up against the the master that way. And then of course you're going to have to sand it and finish it in the normal way. But there it is, the FAD. A couple of videos showing me making some parts with it after. Hope you had a nice summer. This is my summer. We'll see you next time. Bye now.